switch back to this.
So I'm recording this, right?
Okay, let me share. Okay, there's a little bit of delay between when I push buttons and when I push buttons. So hopefully, I'm gonna wait for the screen to go full. There we go. Now this is pretty basic. If everyone knows a little bit about backgammon, I can kind of speed things up here at the beginning. If everyone understands, I would like a little bit of feedback while we're going on. And if I think it's an interruption, I'll just kind of go on and, it's okay. Questions are welcome. I didn't really know, since Ola stated it's like for beginners, intermediates, I started with stuff pretty basic. So some of you guys probably know a lot of it at first, but there should be some nuggets that even at the end, that even some top players will like.
Sounds good.
So the first thing is what's a reference position? And a reference position is really a position that we know the value of the position. The value, a lot of people get afraid of the word equity, but it's something we can kind of refer to and know. And it should be easy to remember because we want to be able to remember it all the time. And often reference positions, but not always, they're kind of right on the border of a take pass decision, right on the border of a double, no double, or to pass to good decision. What this means is that for the decision, let's say a take pass, it wouldn't really matter. The person deciding whether to take or pass wouldn't make a mistake whether they took or pass. It'd be completely neutral, that decision. And then from that position, no matter which way it goes, it will kind of tip the balance in the scale. We can use that as a reference. So we'll start with kind of a really easy reference that everyone knows. And this is not a take pass decision. It's just the very starting position. I like to show this because everyone knows that we do know a reference position. We do know what it starts with. And does anyone know here an idea how many gammons does each player win from the starting position? About
14%.
Okay, good. Yeah, so up 13, 14%. It's somewhere between there. And that's just a little bit of information. I'm not going to get into now why that's necessarily useful to know, but it does come in handy. When I'm evaluating more complex positions, I'll always say to myself as a reference, I'll say, am I winning? Or if I'm being doubled, am I losing more gammons than the starting position? So I will use the starting position as, a balance to think, am I winning more or less gammons from that position? And so for endgame reference positions, we have to understand a little bit the probabilities of the dice. And this is where if everyone kind of knows this, I don't know all who's in attendance, we can kind of go kind of fast here. But I have done this presentation to people that have never even played the game before. So we don't really have to memorize the probabilities, but it does help. Of course, in backgammon, there's 36 possibilities with 2 dice. This is all of them laid out there. And as we can see, 6 of them are doubles. The other are non-doubles. And the non-doubles are really divided. They're 15. And on the other side of the screen, you can see it's the same 15 that happened. So there's kind of 2 occurrences of each. So actually, there's only 21 different rolls but we always talk about the 36 possibilities because the non-doubles, which are 15, kind of occur twice. So here's a simple endgame reference position. White's on roll here. And the question is from here. Now, this is a good reference position, and we'll see why after. Cube action here. With how many, first cube action idea. Does anyone know the cube action from this position? Is it a double? Is it a take?
Double take.
It's a double and a take.
Okay. Anyone else have a different opinion?
Oh,
Okay, everyone's like the optimist and going, this is a complete balance position. This position doesn't matter at all. Now we're talking kind of for money play. And normal match score is very similar to that. It doesn't matter if black takes or passes. It's right on the bubble. It's a perfectly efficient cube, and we'll see that in a second. So with how many rolls will white lose in this position?
well, if it's perfect, it's 25%.
Okay. Right, 25%. So how many rolls out of 36 is that?
9.
Okay. So to count them, to prove that you're right, we will miss here with, here's our little thing. You're right. 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 3-2, double ones. So the way I normally count shots in my head anyways, I will start with the non-doubles always, and I'll count them on one hand. And I always work my way up either from the small numbers or the high numbers. So in this case, I'd count on one hand. I'd say 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. And I see that 5-1 gets off, and then I'll start with the next lowest non-double, which is 3-2. I'd say 3-2. I have 4 fingers. I'd realize that all other non-doubles don't work, and I'd say, okay, 4 times 2 is 8. And then I'd add the doubles that don't get off, which is 1-1. So it gets to 9. Total of 9 misses. And you're right, with the total of 9 misses, it's exactly 25%. And if we see on the equity, it doesn't matter here. You can see on the left, this is, when I say equity, see the possibilities. So to really explain this chart, we can see these winning chances up here. White wins 75% of the time. Black wins 25% of the time. And the redouble take and redouble pass are exactly the same in this position. This is called a perfectly efficient cube. And actually, this is the goal in backgammon, is to get to a perfectly efficient cube. It's not to win necessarily. I mean, when you've got to a position like this, you have the equivalent of already won the game. I mean, you're basically indifferent whether your opponent takes or passes. And if you're in that situation, you're indifferent whether you take or pass. I mean, other factors will determine whether or not you want to take or not. It really doesn't matter whether, you want to hurry up and get to dinner, or whether, you're playing someone that you think is lousy and you'd rather play more games against them than, you may want to pass instead of getting it. But I really like this simple reference position. It really sums up, for last roll position, it really, whoop. I'm skipping. I'm going to say something else before I get to that. For last roll position, it's really it's like a true symmetry kind of balanced position. I kind of like, this is sort of like the yin yang of cube and reference positions. It's just it's a complete balance. So for a last roll position, 25% is the point of last take. We'll see that in other positions where there's more game to play, we can take a cube when we're winning less than 25% of the time. We'll kind of learn those things, and you don't really need to know all the numbers and percentages all the time. But for a last roll, we need to be to take 25% of the time, mainly because we're never going to be able to redouble. As I said, it's an optional pass take. We already said this. Both the pass have the same expected value. Perfectly efficient double. There it is. Okay. So here's another quick simple one. Now this is also a great reference position. If the other one's symmetry, this position is much more practical. This position comes up and happens a lot more than the other position. The other one's almost theoretical, meaning that the other position, I mean, that exact position may have come up a couple of times when I play backgammon. This position here comes up at least once a tournament or more. You know, it seems to come up, you know, once every chouette or something, you know, something like this. So here, white's on roll. Should white double? Should black take?
Double
How
take.
many rolls? How many rolls miss for white here?
So
We
if-
can.
10.
you're asking if it's a redouble or if it's a double? If it's a-
Both.
okay.
10 rolls
Yeah.
miss for white, so it's clear double.
Okay.
And
So
clear
here,
take.
yeah, and I see Ralph said I
Means
can see
you're-
on there double take. And right, so now
So you're below the 25% if you're black.
No,
you're
above it.
you're above 25%.
Oh, right, yeah, you're above the, yes, correct.
So
You
for
win
here-
more than 25%.
So for here, all ones miss except double ones. So there's 11 ways to roll a one. We can see there's, you know, 6 on that side, 6 on the top. Double ones occur twice. So there's 11 different ways to roll a one, but in this case, double ones is a winner. So it means there's 10 rolls that will miss for white. And as we saw from the other reference, with 9 rolls is right on the border of a take pass decision. And so if black is going to win more than 9 games out of 36, it's kind of clearly on the take side. So again, the end game positions, knowing that if you can get to 9 games out of 36, that you're going to win. If you can count it up and see that there's more than 9 that you're going to win here, in this case, exactly 10, this becomes a clear, kind of a clear take. And I don't know if I put the equity up on this one, but
Is it 28%?
didn't put the equity up, but yeah, it's exactly 28%. I put at the very end, I don't want to pop into it now, but I will show. I'm in a real crust. I like showing backgammon without numbers, but I think there's also very simple ways to deal with numbers also to get percentages. So I like presenting both things. If we have time in the end, I'll just show, I don't have the graph here and I don't want to leave the presentation, but when I do cross section of 36 games, I only really remember 3 easy references that I know. And we said 1, 9 out of 36 is 25%. 18 out of 36 is 50%. 12 out of 36 is 33%. Obviously, the inverse of that is also true. So if one person's winning 25%, the other person is winning 75%, and it's 27 games. And for each additional game, like in this position, someone said it's 10 games. If 9 is 25%, you can just add or subtract 3% to get the percentage win. So I don't really do the math in my head, although you could say, okay, what's 10 out of 36? I simply say 9 out of 36 is 25. I win 1 more game than that, it's 28%. if it was only 8 games win for some reason, I'd say in my head, okay, 9 games is 25%, 8 is 3 less than that, it's 22%.
Okay.
If you need to know those numbers and percentages, which in match play you do very often sometimes need to know. Okay, this is another classic end game decision here. And white's on roll. And I'm going to know both as a mix here. And again, there's an exercise on counting, to learning to count shots. And there's also just a reference. And I know, Irina, I know you know this reference. You always did that hand signal. Yeah, she always did this hand signal. You'll remember this reference. We do this hand signal. That means this reference. This is the 5-2. That kind of, to remember this. So you don't have to count this over the board. But on this, I'm both going to look at both the cube action here. Should white double? Now, should black take? Now, before I even hear the answer, say it, we'll know that black should definitely take just from the reference that we already saw, right? If black could take with 2 checkers on the deuce point, black can definitely take now because it's worse. It's also a last roll position and it's worse for white. So we know black can definitely take. Do we know how many numbers miss here? How often white will win? How often black will win?
White wins 19.
I think it's 13.
No, Ralph is right. It's 19
It's
wins.
all 6, all 5s. It's 20 minus the ones, 16 plus the doubles.
Yeah. So if we count this out, and there's different ways to count, that's right. I always start low, and I would say, okay, we're missing here with all ones. Let's see if I do the run through here. No, I didn't do the run through here. All ones. So we just saw all ones is 11. And then I'd go to the next lowest that don't have ones. So I'd say, okay, 2, 3. And I'm counting on my hand. So 2, 3, 2, 4. And I say 2, 5 wins. Then I go to the next lowest non-double, 3, 4. And I say, okay, it's all ones plus 3, 2, 4, 2, and 4, 3. So it's 11 plus 3 non-doubles, which is 6. So there's 17 numbers miss. But yeah, this is as close to kind of an end game with 2 checkers to barely winning. This is what you need. You're at least this amount to be able to double for white. Now it's only barely winning, but since it's a last roll position, white can double this, and should. When I say should, let's say if we're theoretically talking about money where you don't really care, there's no adaptation of opponent or any kind of match score consideration. This is kind of a clear double. It also serves as a reference to know that we can see this is 7 pips and it's 19 wins. We look at this next position here. This is also 7 pips. But yet here, and instead of going through and counting, because it's not really the idea, I'm not really want to do a lesson on counting shots. I'm doing more of a reference on kind of references. And this position comes up. This is kind of the polar opposite between the other position. In this position, 17 rolls win and 19 rolls lose. So it also gets to the reference that when to choose the ideal distance between your last 2 pips is, between 2.5, you know, people like to say 2.7 pips apart is ideal. It's really anything over 2.6 and below 3 is the ideal distance to have between two checkers. So this is, you have one distance between the checkers here, 4 and 3, but you actually get off more with 5 and 2. So this position here would not be a double for money to normal score, because of course, white's not even the favorite here. White's not only winning 17 times. So as you see, it's the inverse. 17 times is 47%. Again, you can kind of wow yourself in your head to say when there's one roll, it's 50%, and at 18 rolls, at 19 and
Minus one.
17, yeah, you just -1, so you just take 3% off, and wow, you're instantly know exactly how often you're going to win. Okay, so this, I'm going to break. See, it's going really slow, so I want to break to XG to share on this because I didn't do this all in PowerPoint. But now we're going to go to the 3 checkers versus 3 checkers on an endgame reference. This is by far one of my favorite reference positions because it's a very balanced position. Let me leave this, get to XG here. Okay, does everyone see XG now? Yes.
Yep.
So this position, 3 checkers versus 3 checkers. Does anyone have idea of the value of this position? Should white double, should black take?
It's 3 roll versus
Yeah,
3
you
roll
said-
pretty much, might as well.
I was gonna say 2 roll versus 2 roll, but I think you're right. 3 to be safe.
Yeah, it's in between 2 and 3.
Yes.
And
2.5 against 2.5.
Okay, well, we can get into rolls, but a pure 3 roll versus 3 roll versus 3 roll is actually, we can look at that. That's this. And I've learned the hard way. I think Dimitri's here. I've learned the hard way about this.
Kann ich hier essen? Ich höre mir was das an, wenn es geht.
I always put 3 roll like this. Because it's easier to see, it's easier to set up, and it's easier to know. This is still a pass, but one time I was betting the percentages with Dimitri, and I was using this, and he was using the numbers for all on the ace point, which is a pure 3 roll. So you can see here, this 3 roll, this is a, from here, this is a pass. It's a little under 21%. If they're all on the ace point, it's a little above 21%. And it's still a pass in this position. There we go. The purist on 3 roll, we'll put it like this. And we'll look at this in a second, because these are also roll versus roll positions are also kind of really good references to know. So actually, since we're there, we're actually on this, I will go over this, right now. Actually, one of the references I had in a second refers to this. So we'll look at that after this 5-4-3 position. 5-4-3 versus 5-4-3. It's beautiful in multiple ways. So here, this is right on the border as well as a take pass decision. Okay. I roll this out, it should even be closer than this. Yeah. So what this means is that at this point, if white has 3 checkers left and at least 5-4-3 or better against 3 or more checkers, it's always going to be a double here. Because if he can, And that's actually this doesn't prove that, but it is. I'm going to show you what's neat about 5-4-3 is that this here it's a double. This is a bare take. So if black was any worse than this, or if the three checkers were any closer, so let's say we had, you know, something like this, both are a little bit closer with three checkers. Now this is a pass. Okay, this starts to be a clear pass. So whether you're the taker or the, you know, as far as the taker's perspective, when there's three checkers left and you're equal, you have to have at least be at 5-4-3 or further back. So by knowing that this is the point of symmetry, you'll know from this reference if you were further, you know, if the position was any further back. Sorry, my computer's a little wonky, it jumps around. I didn't want to do that. You know, it is going to be a take. So if we were like, you know, if 5-4-3 is a take, then 5 and 2 on the 4, or, you know, further back is going to be a huge take, for example. Also, well, I think this reference is great for multiple reasons, is that even if white had all of her checkers on the ace point, 5-4-3 is also, this is a double for white. White has enough to double this at this point, but anything worse than 5-4-3 with three checkers would not be enough to double. So I kind of see this as like a dual reference position for endgame with kind of with three checkers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
So of course, here we have a bare double. We just back it up one more pip here, and that's the best way to pick it up. And we'll see that here, you know, this is a no double at this point. Now we can see on the side here, we're winning 58% of the time. Now it's a no double though, even though with, you know, with that position, 5-2, we knew it was a double. We're only winning 52% of the time. The key difference is that this is not a last roll position. You know, here white rolls a 2-1, and as we'll see after that, then black could actually, you know,
Recube.
recube. But we'll see that in a second. What I don't have on the slide, I want to do really fast the roll versus roll. And I think I might have this after on there. So this is not a pure three. As we saw with three roll, it was very close. Now, when people are just starting, it's good enough in someone's head to say, okay, at three roll, it's a double and a pass. But, you know, if we play tournament backgammon, we have to know we're winning around 21% from this position. Why does that matter? Because at many match scores, you know, we could very easily want to take it 21%. So it's good to know a little bit the numbers out there. Now, let's look at 4-roll. And again, I like putting 4-roll like this because practically this happens a lot more than all on the ace point anyway. So I like learning this reference, although pure 4-roll is all on the ace point. So idea of the cube action here, white's on roll. White has a full roll ahead here of black. Should black take?
I think it's about 25%. So I think I have it memorized as double take, but I don't know the percentage.
Yeah. You are correct. It is right around 25%, as we'll see here, slightly under. And it's a double. And we still have a, you know, it's a big double, as we can see here. And it's still a take. It's slightly under 25%. Black does have a take, even though it's under 25%. We can start seeing, at times it sways, we can often take considerably less. We'll get the idea now of the kind of the power of the recube. I mean, the reason this is a take is that, you know, black doesn't have to win the game. black has to get to the point where white can't take anymore. So in a normal submission, white has to double now, because if white pulls off 2 checkers and then black pulls off 2 checkers, at this point, if white doubles, white would have lost his market. Okay, now, and we say that when it's now a pass. So white can no longer take the cube. But now let's imagine in this scenario that white rolls a non-double, black rolls a double, white rolls a non-double, now black has the cube. So if this was playing out at double match point and he's in game, white still has chances to win this game. And we'll look in a second how often. But now black no longer has to win and roll. Black can just win the game by shoving the cube. So that possibility kind of accounts for the fact that black can take with below than 25%. If we get severe, it's a huge pass. And I kind of broke. I was going to say, well, how often does white win? These numbers are kind of fun to do in the head with numbers. Is that if black's on roll, basically for white to win, black has to roll a non-double, which is going to happen.
21 out of 36.
Yeah. Or 6 out of 30.
30 out of 36.
30 out of 36, but then, which is 5 out of 6 times he's going to roll a non-double.
Yeah.
And then white has to roll a double, which is 1 out of 6. So it's 5 6 times 1 6. It's 5 out of 36 is the exact fractional percentage, and our number here for 5 out of 536 is 13.89. You don't really need, don't need to know that, but to know how to figure out and know it, it's good because there's also match situations that come up that, you could easily have a take at 14% at, odd match scores. End game positions are really good because when they come up, the cube's already, it's normally going to be a recube to 4 in lots of positions, a lot of positions we're looking at. So it is kind of good to know the numbers. So let me get back to the PowerPoint. So that was the beauty of the 5-4-3. I just want to really remember that. It's a real balanced position. The number that we looked at before, I don't know if I show it on here, it's right around 24% win chances from here. This in between positions, I have these little pictures, but this is just one of my favorite old time pictures. I just wanted to point out. It just seems just so relevant today. It's like we haven't changed. We haven't changed at all. There's just people discussing over a shoe or something, and I don't know what's going on, but I don't know. We haven't changed.
If you're pulling knives out in your shoe, I never want to be part of that one.
It's theoretical. Yeah, we're pretty tough. We're gonna have a shoe here in Charlottesville, and it gets rough. Now this is another one of my. This is a really neat position with slightly more checkers here, and this is one that I really like this position as well. I said 6-5-3-2 versus 3 roll-ish. I say 3 roll-ish, 3 for before, that a pure 3 roll would have them all on the ace point. Mainly the subtle difference is that white rolls, double ones, and then 2 1s in a row or something, he won't get off or something like that. There's a subtle difference. But anyone take a stab of the cube reference for this? Is this a double? Is it a take? Now, again, a lot of these references, there's lots of formulas out there that you can do and say, okay, this is a pips versus roll, and I can use EPC. But my idea with a lot of those reference positions is to make it easy so you don't really need to do that. When you see the position, you just know. like the 6-4-3 position, people will glance at the position, say, is this a double or take? And you can just know, you know, you're worse than 6-4-3. You can, oh, I know that's a pass. I know this is a take. Just by knowing where it stands on the balance beam. So what do we think about this? Is it a double? Is it a take?
Double take.
I think I don't want to roll a 1.
You're saying double take. Well, since I'm doing these as reference positions, you know it's going to be close, right? And this-
It's only a couple of rolls where you can end up worse than the 5-4-3. Only like if you roll like a 4-1, you end up worse, but if not, you're gonna end up equal or better than a 5-4-3.
Okay,
Right.
Nice.
but that is correct. But again, it's going to be a plus at the point that you're going to have a bear double at that point as well if you get some of those bad positions. But you are correct. It's very close. This is actually very small. I called it with first. Let me get this is a dual reference position because when you flip this around, this is the missing middle finger position here. I made that up yesterday. I guess I'm assuming that there's a missing.
Trade, better get a trademark on that one.
There's a missing middle finger here, but it's a dual reference position
Like
because if you flip it
that.
around, you can see this. This is a very, this is a small pass here. They're winning 20, here it says 23.5% of the time. But when you flip it around, the missing middle finger inverted, it's also the borderline, no matter who's on roll. This is a small pass, and this is 23.5% of the time. So you can see both sides. You can explain it that both sides have the same effective pip count from this position. But this is a bare pass for either side. So on each one, you can do a reference. So this is kind of double bang for your buck as far as reference positions go, because if you kind of just remember the position for these kind of low end games without doing formulas, you have, both reference positions, whether you're the taker or doubler in either position. So again, since this is a bare, this is a small pass in this situation, you'll know if white was slightly, better here and white's the one doubling, it'd be a large pass. If white was worse than this in any way, it'd be a huge take, or it would be a take at least, not to say huge, because we haven't quantified that yet. But I really like this position. And again, you can use the video. I mean, I make cards to try to remember positions. I mean, the funny thing about reference positions is that, you have to look over stuff all the time and go over it. You can easily forget reference positions, and the easier they are, the more chance you have to remember it at a key point. Now, Ralph mentioned something. What was the question there, Ralph?
Yeah, I think it's important to know what is an improvement and what's not. So I'm asking now, if you move the checker from the 3-point to the 2-point, is it an improvement or is it not an improvement?
Are you talking for black or for white?
Yeah, in position now it's for black, for example. But yeah,
Okay, so black was on roll.
Yeah, the one who's on roll. So you have one pip less, but the distribution is worse. Is that clear what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, let me put it up here. So we had this. Doom, 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 doom. Actually, I'm going to do the opposite here.
Yeah, but
I'll just make it on this side.
Yeah.
So in this position, where distribution is worse, it is, and effectively it is an improvement. It is an improvement.
okay.
When balancing all these positions in the end, you are correct. I mean, it is ideal. It's always going to be better to have checkers on multiple points, but you
The
are gaining a pip in
improvement-
this
the-
count. So
The
this is an
improvement is for
improvement.
black? The improvement
Right
is,
now, white's on roll.
okay,
So this is a pass. I mean, it was a borderline, there's a very borderline pass here. So let's see how much. This is 23.47%. This one is, 22.99. So it's very close. It's a slight improvement for white. But yes, it is an improvement. But what you said is correct. I mean, if you take something that's like this, so now we have the same amount of pips, but these positions are now stacked. Now we can say this is a take, this is a big take. Okay, so your point, it's actually a very good question. And a good reference is that this is not an improvement for white.
It's less
It's not
diversified.
the same thing, because since these are stacked, this is not as good for white.
Yeah.
And since we have this as a reference position here, this makes it that it's a clear,
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I have this not in this pure position, I really wanted to show you this. We're showing that this is a pass here. Because I like having the dual reference position with either side doubling. But if we put all 6 checkers here, it was that's 7 checkers, that's not going to go. Now we have a pretty sizable take. This is an improvement for black. It's that sensitive, but this way it's not the dual reference, but here black can take. But again, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see that as often. But as we were saying, that you will see this. Any improvement is an improvement from the reference position. This is a take as well. Now, I recommend when you want to learn a position, you can also do exactly what I'm doing right now, is you put it in and play around with it. I've kind of provided the idea for the reference, and I really like this one because it goes either way, back and forth. If I use this as a reference, the other way around wouldn't be the reference, because if black's on roll, it's going to be a clear pass, it's going to be a bigger pass, and I couldn't find that point of equilibrium.
Can I ask a question, Roberto, at this
Yes.
point? Because I'm not so disciplined that I have a library with my, with my blunders and sorted by themes and situations or reference positions. So it's a question for me. How do we come up with these reference positions? Is it because you've been playing a game and you found yourself in this situation and you kind of wanted to figure out after the match what this was worth on XG, or what's the story behind the reference positions?
Good question. Some reference positions are like that for different types of games, and I'm not getting into all the reference positions. Normally there could be a blunder of a situation, and let's say it's a large mistake, that calls my attention. I'm worrying, God, how did I mess up? And I make this, 200 blunder or something. And then you kind of deconstruct the position. To make a reference, I tend to simplify the position. I tend to make it more symmetrical, easy to remember the pattern in my head. But then I also balance it to get right to that balance point of when it's going to be a take pass. Because a reference knowing that something is a 200 blunder doesn't really help me, because if there's a small change in the position, it could still be a pass or not. So I really kind of changed the position to a type of position, which is kind of right at the balance point.
Okay.
And then I know if you put more weight on this side, it's going to be a pass. You put weight on the other side, it's going to be a take.
Mm.
Now for these end game positions, it was a lot of sitting around and just kind of figuring out and playing to get to these positions. I know, some were known and are kind of out there, have been around forever. Like that one checker on the 6-point position, I read that and the Oswald Jacoby, the backgammon book that I saw on my dad's shelf when I was 12 years old. I saw that position and I started thinking about numbers, and it's that perfect balance, and it really helped me understand the game. The position with 2 on the deuce point, that does come up, and it's a reference position we've kind of all seen, and we often know it's a take, even though we hate it. I think every intermediate player has gotten to the point where they don't want to take that, but they've learned that they have to take that, and they do. But these other ones, I kind of constructed by playing around to find kind of fun, different ways to figure things out. Because when you start getting further out in endgames than these positions with a lot more checkers, you really get into the point that you can kind of do formulas or figure things out, but different people have little, kind of tricks and reasons to do that fast, to not kind of spend the time over the board doing things. It just kind of adds to the knowledge of things you just know. Now, when you have the resources, you can also try to figure things out over the board, but it's harder and it spends, more time. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna do a couple of race reference positions. What I'll do, and I'll just kind of, I'll say this, and we're talking about kind of long races here, and I'll throw this over the board after to kind of look at. Now, first I'm going to mention what wastage is. Now when I'm talking about race references, I'm making references without wastage. So we're not having extra wastage. Is referred to from several different kind of counts, as when you have multiple checkers on your ace or your deuce point, or a lot of checkers maybe on your 3 point, or there's also when there's gaps high in your board on the 6, 5, and 4 point. But these are positions here that we're looking at that don't have kind of wastage. It's a race reference. So 94 pips for white, 90 for black. White's on roll. How often is white winning this game? Right.
About half the time.
Yeah. This is almost exactly kind of half the time here. This is, and when I talk a lot of times it's confusing, because when I say something's an even race, I'm talking about a position where the person on roll is down by 4 pips. When I say an even pip count, 90-90 would then know that the person rolling has a,
Small
a
advantage.
kind of significant advantage. So this position is 4 pips down on the race is a 50-50 position. As we can see here, depend on crossovers and stuff, it's right around 50. And that will hold true. Here we see 104 to 100, also right at 50%. Here was slightly less because here the person on roll, he's down a crossover, but he's on roll, so he's going to make up for that. This is right, also a balance position. And now each pip, also to say here, we can get into it, I can throw it on the board after, is in these long races of like 190 pips, each pip is going to be worth around 2%, that you don't have to worry about numbers. That will slowly start getting higher. Each pip is worth more when the race is shorter. But in a long race at 100 pips, if the pip count was even, like 100 to 100, essentially white is leading. If this is the symmetrical position, white is then leading by 4 pips if the pip count is even. And white would be winning around 58% of the time. Black would be winning 42% of the time. And we can see how percentages work greatly in one person's favor. I mean, when one person goes up, the other person goes down. So an even pip count, 58-42, I mean, that's a big swing. I mean, now imagine, and it's a lot. They still have a great chance to win, but it's a lot. When you get down to 70 pips, 65 is pretty as close as you can get without a lot of wastage. It could be worth right around 2.5%, maybe even ever so slightly more. So if you have a race that's like 70 pips and the person's up by 4 pips, I mean, it's an even race, 70 versus 70, you'll expect that they're probably winning, like 60, a little over 60% of the time. So it'll be about 2.5 pips each, could be 61. It's not really important because you're not going to get the cube decisions at that point, but it will help estimate the win percentage in different moments. So here we are, whites on roll. I don't know why it's a 4 cube there. I guess when I made the slide, it happened to be a 4 cube. I guess it makes it more exciting to see it there. And I really like this reference for long races, because a lot of times we learn pip count formulas and we're trying to figure out if it's a take or not. But again, as tournament players, we need to know the numbers, because it's going to be different take points at different scores. Or even if you're not worried about take points and numbers, I like to say our tipping point is going to be changing at different scores, kind of what our balance is when we want to take. So the reference here is really when you're down 10% in the race, and here I made a balanced position where it's exactly 10%, 100 to 110. How often is white winning? How often is black winning this position? Okay, Ralph said one number, 77.
75-25 is
Yeah.
in terms of a reference that you can remember.
Yeah, so you are right. When you're down 10% in the race, it's almost exactly a 25% chances for the trailer. Down 10% of the leader's pip count. Here it's almost exactly 25% for the trailer. Now I really like this as a reference position because, as we can see, I'm not going to get into the race, in the formulas, but you can take when you're worse than that. But it's good to know the percentages. You can actually, your point of last take is basically 2 pips worse than 10%. So actually here, black would have for money, would pretty much have a break-even decision if he was down 12 pips from this position. Now, what makes it easy for us, that in reality, when we're making decisions, it's normally an odd number. We aren't going to have 100. It might have 103 or something. And it makes it really easy to know when to take or pass. I'm not going to get into exactly when to take now. I just wanted to use the reference that it's right around 25% when you're down 10%.
That's huge.
What's that?
I'm saying it's pretty huge. I wouldn't have figured it would be that much difference in terms of winning chances.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter how long the race is. I mean, if the race is like 120 to 132 pips, it may be that the win chances dip down a little closer to 24%. If it's, around 60, if it's 77, 77, it might be headed a little closer to 26% chance, but it's really right around 25% chance. And if we have time here at the end, I can get into really from there when exactly is the double point or not. But I really like knowing that the 10% deficit is right around 25%, because
Can I ask something?
Scores, if you're the leader in the race, I mean, if you're the leader in a match and are being recubed, very often you're going to need to have at least 25% win chances to win. So just by knowing that, you know, you have to, often you can know as the balance. Basically, I adjust all my match decisions really based on this to really narrow in exactly how often to win. And again, we can get down almost exact at this point on this really long race. Each pip, when you're this far away from the 50-50, each pip now is really worth about, let's say, 1.5 at this point. We know we said before, when you're about even in the race, each one, it's worth around 2. But once the percentages drops and it's not 50-50, each pip here for the trailer down is going to be about 1.5% here. So from 25%, if you want to delve in the numbers, you know, if white was down, if black was down here 2 more pips, we could assume if it's 25%, he'd be around 22%. Or in this case, it was 24.84. He'd probably be around 21.84 or something, down 2 more pips. And that would be the point of last take for him in a race. Again, he can take worse than 25% because of that power of the recube that can come up. And he has ample time to be able to get that recube in there at one point. Okay, that's okay. Here's another little end game one. This has the answer here though. So now I think at the end of this slide, so I just have a few different positions if someone can save as a reference. I don't have it posed as a question per se. We can kind of get into the reasons why a little bit. A position like this, very often people will look as far as the trailer and easily look and say, okay, this is 2-roll, 2-roll. I have a big pass. But yet here we can see it's you know, it's a position. The only person that really has 2-roll in this position is black. We can easily see how white is multiple ways of taking more than 2 rolls. And again, this is a reference.
2 ones in a row.
It's a huge double, but this is a bare take. So again, the reason here is, yes, any 2 ones in a row, even double one, is going to miss for white. So if you roll 11, you know, there's 11 ways to roll a 1. That's 30% of the time, okay? Because 12, the reference we showed before, 12 would be 33%, 11 is 30. Well, the chances of rolling on 1 roll after 1 roll would be 30% of 30%, and that's around 9%. So only from rolling 2 ones in a row, blacks gained around 9% win chances, more or less. And that would put him from, you know, around 14% to around 23%. That in itself, since he doesn't have the power of the recube, it wouldn't be enough for a take in this endgame position. But he can also roll, you know, any 2 except double 2s, and then roll a 2-1 or something like that and also miss. And that adds up for the small other percentage out there of being able to make this a small, you know, a very small take as a reference. This is the one I was getting to before. We kind of already did this. Let's remember this 3 rollish versus 3 rollish in this position. And we knew that 3-roll, pure 3-roll is a pass. But this position here, this is a take. And this is kind of the reason why I don't like to only remember roll versus roll, because it could be really easy in our head to simplify the position too much and just say, oh, this is roll versus roll. But as we can clearly see, white is not as good as the roll position. Why? Because if white gets, double twos and double ones, and black also then gets, they're not going to rip and save a roll basically from that. They're still going to need 3 rolls. They're going to need 2 rolls after that to get off. Each of those accounts for some of the percentages there. In this case, there's also the chance of white rolling 3 ones in a row, although not including double ones, and that adds for some of the percentage here, some of the percentage as well. So while this is kind of hard to remember, I don't want to do like overload. I just want to do simplicity. I want to see kind of where you can really delve to hone in. I would say this in itself is sort of more of an advanced kind of position. If you want to remember just a simplicity double pass, you can remember that 3-roll, is a small pass. If you remember, if it's small pass, it may help you to remember that in positions that kind of tilt the balance in black's favor, it can quickly become a take. Now this is a position here, and I like this. And this, I think this is a different kind of reference position I made, and I'm including this one here for top level players as well that are playing here to remember. I was in my hunt for reference positions and also dealing with match equity. I was really looking for positions that were easy that would teach me more than one thing. So I said at the beginning that reference positions are often based around double take positions. This one's not for a normal score. But I balance it to remember both take points for match equity and the reference of a value of a position in the end game. Although there is clues on this board, but does anyone want to make a stab of how often white wins this position? And you can also say, is it a double, is it a take as well? Do that. Good, Magneto's nailed it on there. And by being that close, I would suggest that he knows the clue. Now, does anyone know, in its, in a two-way position here, what the take point is at two-way? Now, in a real match, someone would have doubled at two-way. They would have doubled before this position. So it's not really going to happen. This isn't a reference position to think, if I get to this position and it's two-way, what's my take point? But this position is, what I find beautiful is to remember, and if you know this, you'll always remember your take point at two-way, is the take point at two-way is 32.26%. This is 36.27. At two-way, it's right on the balance of 32. But from here, from the reference, very easy to remember. When I look at this position, I think two-way. I can remember that this is 32%, and that was before. When I develop it, now I'm going to remember it's 32.25%. I'm going to remember that that's the actual take point at two-way. But this is, I don't know, I think it's great. For me, it's kind of like a little enigma of backgammon. It's like to find a position this simple and easy to remember, which is also at this balance point at two-way. I think is quite neat and easy to remember. And so that's it. I can go through some other things. answer questions. I can get into this. This is a little more number oriented. I don't know if I wanted to really delve into big numbers now. We could do, but I'll open up for questions. And if we don't have questions, I can kind of go through and have fun with that last problem, but it does deal with a lot more numbers. Any questions or ideas and stuff?
Yeah, maybe I have one, but because my background is I grew up with backgammon, and cube is still a very recent discovery for me. That's to be honest, not natural at all. From my culture of playing backgammon. And so I often, I find out about the cube in the same time as XJ, although I know that XJ was developed much after, long after the cube was introduced in backgammon. But yeah, my question is, is it possible? Does it make sense to say that one can acquire an intuitive grasp of the cube, or is it really XJ related, like in the sense of being more and more familiar with typical situation or reference positions in order to handle the cube and have a proper cube action?
I would definitely say yes. You can see all the time developing an intuitive sense of the cube comes. There's many people that just from playing, over and over chouettes and remembering, positions, you get this intuitive sense of a cube. I think it's very important, actually. I think if you don't have any intuitive sense of the cube, it's going to be very, very hard. I think we all have some sort of intuitive sense of when it's a cube, or at least we begin to develop that, where it's going to be quite hard if we're only basing it on numbers or only basing it on reference positions. I think it would be hard. I use reference positions and ideas to really give me a balance, like a check. I check my intuition, like the intuition is kind of like the gut. So I'll get over the board and I get so used to some positions that it's like boom, boom, boom. Okay, this is a cube. Like I know it because I've worked and I've developed that that intuition. Sometimes it's because I've studied a position, and sometimes it's just that feel that it's a take. If you're playing chouette and you're used to doubling and you get to a position, that some people start dropping and some take, that's then intuition. If some people are going to pass, you could have no idea about cube, but just the diversity of people that some are passing and some are taking. Okay, so in the chouette, that is a correct double. That refined, you can get to a reference position or look at the numbers behind that. But I really think that that's how intuition is developed, is by playing and knowing by the feel that this position's about like this. So this should be a double, or I've won this before, it should be a take. Now, if you're only doing an intuition, though, if our intuition's off, that's when you really hone in on possibilities. You can see, no, this person has a tendency to really be taking big passes. They really like the positions to take, and you kind of have to fine tune it. When you develop those tendencies, it's not hard, because I just kind of say you just have to reel it in sometimes. Let's say turn down the flame a little bit. If someone's always doubling early, doubling really aggressively, maybe they're playing in games that they get passes. That's why they're developing that way, or they like volatility. But you can kind of just, when you work with them, say, no, just turn down the flame a little bit, like you got it. You don't want to stop that drive and intuition. I think it's a very important part of the feel of the game, especially kind of beyond numbers. I think the game is much more than just numbers. It's really about balancing. It's really about balancing your intuition and honing it in and making it more precise. So I think the concise answer to the question is yes, intuition has a very big role. Reference positions especially help hone in kind of the check to the intuition, and numbers is really fine tuning of even the reference position.
Okay, beautiful. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Roberto.
Yeah. Any other questions? No
Probably I
question?
have a question. I never
Yeah.
understood 2%, this 2% per,
You cut off.
per pip. So you
Okay.
showed the position with was, I'll switch off my camera. You showed a race with 100 to 110. And the difference is then really not 14 pips. So I would imagine it's 28% difference then.
Yeah,
And
well, the further away you get, the value of the pip starts changing when you break away from around 50%. So we'll see here. So here it's 90-90. This is what we looked at before. This is around 50-50. We give it 4 more pips here. Now it's an even race. And as we'd expect here, here it's right around, in this position, it's 59. So here it's actually was slightly more than 2% already because we're at 90.
Yeah.
2.25, whatever here. But if you see the further behind you get, it's not 2% anymore because you quickly get to 0.
Okay.
So I have another reference actually. So let's get to our point of last take here. Hold on, that's 97. So we have 99, that's 10%. This is going to be again right around 25%. 25% for the trailer here. Whoops, why do we have 24 here? Well, I guess I messed them up on extra crossovers.
Yeah.
Here. Crossovers do matter, so there we go. Now it's over because he's over on the crossover. So his point of last take here is going to be this. It's going to be 11 pips. So again, I'm making this complicated because it's exactly 90 here. But if 90 for the point of last take, we're going to have 10% of the leader is 9 pips, always from the leader's perspective. 2 pips worse of 9 is 11. This is going to be the point of last take for black, for money. We're going to look at this here. This here's a take 22. If we back them up 1 more pip here, I'm going to cheat and make it easy here to give them a crossover, make it a kind of a clear pass. Now when we work back, you're going to see that here each pip is going to be worth less than 2% because we're so far away from that point here. We had 20.78 before. Now we have 19.4. So here was only like 1.4 pips per pip.
So
The
as the
further away
race
you get,
as the race gets shorter, you get closer to that 2%. That's what you're saying.
well, when the distance between the opponent gets further down, it gets further away because imagine this, he's at 18% here. If I put him down 9 more pips, he's not going to go to 0. So he has to, the pip has to start being worth less.
Okay.
But I back him, here's at 18%. I back him up 9 more pips. He's 104. I go to 113. This is horrible for black, but it's clearly not 0.
Right.
Okay. Another reference actually used, and it comes up. It's pretty abstract, but I use it for certain kind of positions. But you can also get down when you're down around 20% in the race, which at this point would be 18. From this position, you have around 13.5% win chances. It's not something you need to know, but I use it as another point of balance. But when you're down exactly 20%, it comes in play for for match scores and stuff like that. And then you can see from this position, each pip is going to be worth I think it's only around 1. And then it's going to be slightly going down even less than 1 after that. Even this is slightly less than 1. But again, at this point, when you're down this far and your win percentage is this low, each pip is going to be worth even less than 1%, because you're not really getting to 0. It's just one of those things. Like when you can always have distance. If you always get half the distance to the finish line, you're never going to get there, kind of thing. It's really hard to get to absolute 0 win chances, even when you back it up a ridiculous amount. So yeah, the less your win chances are, the less value each pip is, the less important it is. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Thanks for inviting me. I have to take off now, but I really appreciate this. This is great.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome, Peter.
Yeah, the same to me. I have to play at 30 German time in 2 minutes or 5 minutes. So thank you very much.
Bye. Nice to meet you, Ralph, and everyone else. Bye, Irina.
Bye. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Take care.
Thank
And
you.
Magrito, who are you again? What's your name? I have a feeling I know you, but I'm not knowing the nick that's on there. I don't know who it is, but okay.
Right.
Any
Thanks,
other questions? No
Hi, Jeff.
comment. Okay, well, if
thanks,
there's
Roberto.
not more,
Was
yeah,
super
thank
cool.
you. And,
Roberto.
enjoy and-
Thank you very much for carrying my Bill Roberty books to Germany, to Trier. So
oh, yeah, you're, oh, that was you that did that, yeah.